Hello there, and welcome to today's recap of the Manhwa series titled Dark Star Emperor. Basically, it's a story about a teenager named Xiaobai, who somehow gets stuck to an alternative reality where magic reigns supreme. Furthermore, the person who helped Xiaobai reincarnate was none other than the Dark Star Emperor Long Ming, who's the top-rank S-level guard as well as ruler of Star Palace. What's funny though is how Long Ming has inflicted a weird curse on Su in order to keep him in check and manipulate his actions. Long story short, Su's entire body is racked with intense pain each time the poor fella starts fantasizing about lewd stuff and gets a boner. Without further ado, let's dive right into the story. In the initial scene, our protagonist, Su, is seen lying in a hospital bed. Poor dude is doomed to die in the vegetable state forever since his brain stopped functioning properly some 3 years ago. Soon, the inevitable happens and Su dies an unhappy as well as unfulfilled life. However, the dude soon regains his consciousness in a miraculous manner and discovers himself standing in the middle of nowhere. Not only that, but he also seems to have recovered somehow and is back in his top form. What's interesting though is how there's a gorgeous beauty standing beside Su as well. Just one peek at her intense figure gives Su an intense boner. Sadly enough, our protagonist suffers from a severe pain in his precious elephant at the same time. It's almost as if, for reasons unknown, poor Su has been forbidden from harboring any sort of lustful desires against the opposite gender. Anyways, the girl named Xiaobai introduces herself as his bodyguard. As it happens, this world is currently being overrun by monstrous predators. Meanwhile, the only surviving humans have barricaded themselves in a place known as the Star Palace. Furthermore, the person responsible for reincarnating Su used to be the ruler of Star Palace and was named Long Ming. Unfortunately, the heroic individual died some 3 years ago while fighting against the invading predators and has been missing ever since. Long story short, Zhao as well as many others now expect Su to take over the throne and shoulder the mantle of rescuing humanity. After all, he's the successor chosen by Long himself. All this info of course is too heavy and mind-blowing to digest without a tiny bit of evidence. Zhao thus bites her thumb to force out some blood. This helps her attract a horde of low-level predators roaming nearby, resulting in both her and Su being surrounded by the mindless beasts. Su, of course, has no reason to keep being stubborn now that the hard as well as the ugly evidence has been presented right before his eyes. Despite being anxious himself, the manly dude instructs Xiao to run away ASAP as he can't bear to see her die under his watch. Xiao does as told while also being impressed by her new master's kind heart. The girl doesn't seem like she's worried for Su's life though. Unless her guess is wrong, Su must have inherited Long Ming's ultra-rare ability, the Endlessness of Dim. Her guess is proven correct soon enough. As it happens, Long Ming's spirit still resides within Su's body, and now starts to guide him on how to use his unique ability. Turns out the Endlessness of Dim is a legendary ability able to help its user absorb his opponent's power and abilities. Su does as told and confronts the tons of predators head-on. As expected, soon a blinding light flashes from the battle zone, and along with that, all those zombies die after having their vitality sucked away by the Endlessness of Dim. Up next, Su accompanies Zhao back to Star Palace. On the way there, Zhao explains how there's 72 elites referred to as Star Guards responsible for guarding Star Palace. These elites are ranked from the lowest level D all the way to the superior S-rank guards. Once inside though, a level C guard named Burst harshly scolds Zhao for tiny reasons. This obviously doesn't sit well with Su since nobody's allowed to mess with his pretty follower under his watch. Su thus incites Burst to a battle and is even able to defeat the guard fair and square. Not only that, but the greedy fella also sucks away all of Burst's energy, turning the enemy into a bony skeleton. Such a stellar performance forces the audience's jaws to drop to the ground. After all, just now an insider not only defeated a level C guard, but also did so while utilizing the long-dead Long Ming's ultra-rare ability. Anyways, Zhao later takes Su away to meet his 2 other female bodyguards, the scientist Li Jin and the swordsman named Qian. Su of course finds it hard to believe that he's somehow the master of 3 exquisite beauties without having to lift a finger himself. Later after dinner, both Ken and the scientist Lee warn Sue not to disappoint Long, or else the consequences will be dire. Finally, at nighttime, Long's spirit re-emerges from inside Sue's body, and the two start chatting in privacy. Turns out the ex-king of stars Long wishes for Sue to annihilate all predators and avenge his death. Also, to make sure Sue listens, the despicable Long has even put a wretched curse on him. Guess what? Every time our dear protagonist gets horny and gets a boner, his tool will be wrecked with immense pain, the likes of which he has never seen before. This, in fact, is the reason why Sue's elephant started hurting like crazy the first time he came in contact with Xiao out in the forest. Back in the present, the reincarnated dude's face loses all color upon realizing how he can only be a useless man forever. The curse will of course be lifted once Sue agrees to ascend the throne and help Long exact his vengeance. Surprisingly though, our courageous protagonist refuses to bend his knees after struggling in silence for a while. As far as Sue is concerned, a second chance at life is hard to come by. Therefore, it's something that should be cherished by living the way he wants to instead of being manipulated by others. That said, being forced to serve as a mere tool in Long's revenge plan is surely out of question. The conversation thus ends here and Sue hops into bed. Unfortunately, his sleep is soon interrupted by Long's adopted sister, Wang Xiu. At present, the devilish girl is busy giving the poor fella a death stare while also pointing her heavy machine gun right at his face. As far as Wang is concerned, Sue must definitely have obtained Long's ultimate ability through some shady means and therefore asked for a detailed explanation. With his life on the line, Sue of course has no choice but to comply with her wishes and tell her the whole story. As expected, Wang is touched upon learning that her adopted brother's soul still lingers on and that he isn't truly dead. Soon afterwards, though, a demon-level predator known as the Devourer appears out of the blue and attacks them both. Wang thankfully rescues Sue in time by using her gun to blow up the many demons into smithereens. Just then, another heavenly beauty named Muyan shows up in a rather mysterious fashion. Turns out, Mu is the blessed lady of Star Palace and is therefore expected to marry the King of Stars upon turning 20. Regrettably, Long himself died a while back, leaving Sue as the person next in line to become the king. Mu definitely isn't in favor of marrying an utter stranger, especially one who used to be a weakling not long ago, and rose merely by relying on somebody else's help. Thus, in order to escape the marriage contract, the glorious maiden now wishes to silence her fiancé forever. Meanwhile, Sue falls into a trance after landing his eyes upon his supposed fiancé for the first time. She can't blame him since the newcomer truly is a beautiful and stunning goddess. Mu soon slaps the dude hard to awaken him from his daydreaming session. Up next, she orders the Chief Devourer to keep Wang caged inside its mouth for a while. In such a way, she will have plenty of time to get rid of Sue once and for all. Unfortunately for her, Sue is far tougher than her estimate. Heck, the dude even forcibly absorbs away the vitality of all her mini devourers. In the meantime, Wang too escapes from the Chief Devourer's mouth in a rather miraculous manner. Turns out, she's in possession of the rare ability, Strengthened Cell, and therefore possesses a far stronger physique than average individuals. Wang's intervention turns into a 1v2 battle, resulting in Mu being pushed into a corner. Left with no choice, the opponent finally utilizes her incredible SSR-level ability, the Eyes of the Blue Moon. In short, Mu's ability grants her the power to hypnotize and manipulate the minds of others, humans and demons alike. Thankfully, Ken intervenes since her master's life is in danger. Surprisingly, the antisocial swordswoman defeats the formidable Yu in a single blow by stabbing the opponent with her sword. Sue rushes over ASAP just then and swoops the injured Mu into his arms. The dude surely ain't willing to let his gorgeous future wife die an untimely death, even when she herself wants to chop him into pieces. Later upon waking up though, Mu agrees to give Sue a chance so long as he's able to ace the upcoming Tournament of Stars. Fast forward a few days and it's time for the Star Grand Tournament to be held. Whichever lucky fellow wins will become the newest Star Guard, plus also be able to compete for the throne someday. At the stadium, two outstanding rookies show up, both possessing SSR-level abilities. One of them is Long Ming, who's Long's nephew as well as a clean freak. As for his ability, the spotless kid is able to manipulate ice at will and can freeze his opponents to death because of that. The other promising individual is a country bumpkin named Ma Fugui, who is in possession of SSR-level fire utilization ability. Both these fellas don't see eye to eye with one another. Heck, the two are even about to start fighting when the referee luckily forbids them from doing so. Just then, Su arrives in a fancy suit while also being accompanied by his many gorgeous bodyguards. This annoys the rest of the competitors, who all start bearing a grudge against this arrogant newbie. Anyways, the competition begins just then, with the first round being to survive outside Star Palace for 5 days in a row. Interestingly, Su volunteers to head out first, since that grants him more time to explore the terrain than all others. Unfortunately, the dude is greeted by a scary octopus-shaped predator instantly upon his arrival. As expected though, Su soon sucks away all of his opponent's life force, himself becoming stronger in the process. Long Ming arrives just then and even helps our protagonist land the finishing blow. He then warns Su to stay vigilant, since this isolated battlefield is the ideal place for his enemies to hunt down and silence him forever. On the flip side, Pinger is seen worrying for her master and wishes to rush over to his location ASAP. Regrettably, a mysterious mercenary named Li Yi blocks her path just then. Turns out, Li plans to force out her master's location from Pinger's mouth and then personally meets Su in order to kill him. Pinger, of course, does her best to keep the enemy occupied. Unfortunately, Li's lightning ability is able to resist her gravity control. As a result, the poor girl is defeated without suspense enough and is just an inch away from being stabbed to death. On the flip side, Su is able to sense that his bodyguard's facing a life-threatening situation. Don't ask me why, cause the author didn't mention any reasons either. Hence, we have no clue either. Anyways, Su soon reaches the battle zone and sends Li flying with a harsh elbow in the neck. Surprisingly though, the battle's not over yet, as Li soon transforms into a humanoid predator. Turns out, he had previously been experimented on by the mysterious predator and has therefore required the tough flesh of those monsters. What's more, a thunderstorm occurs just then as well, granting Li the much-needed energy boost. With such good luck, the commando dude's strength reaches B rank's high level in an instant. Here, Pinger uses her body as a meat shield to block Li's lethal strike and prevent her master from being harmed. This blows up Su's fuse, who then eradicates the enemy out of existence at the cost of getting heavily injured himself. Later on, Su too passes out after having sucked away all of Li Yi's life force and abilities. Interestingly, Mu arrives just then and finds both Su as well as Pinger lying unconscious inside the fire pit. For a moment there, the girl is indeed tempted to take advantage of her past opponent's vulnerability and get rid of him while he's still defenseless. In the end though, she successfully resists the evil temptation and even exterminates the low-level predators being attracted there by the scent of blood. Just then, a demon-level predator with horns appears and lashes out at Mu for having killed tons of his minions earlier. Mu, of course, isn't willing to slip away and save just her own neck while leaving both Su and Pinger at the mercy of this new opponent. She thus summons Rhino Man, one of her pet predators, to help her defend against the enemy's gruesome attacks. Next, Mu uses her Eyes of the Blue Moon ability to manipulate and keep the opponent in place for 3 seconds. Although it's not much, those 3 seconds are enough for her other demon-level pet, Curved Bird, to launch a sneak attack and drill through the enemy's stomach. Even so, the zombie boss refuses to die just yet and instantly starts utilizing his ability, Exploitation, to heal himself by stripping all surrounding living beings of their vitality. Left with no other choice, Mu flees the place together with Su and Pinger. Later, upon waking up, Su thanks Mu for bringing them both to safe harbor. However, soon his mood becomes sour upon learning how serious and life-threatening Pinger's injuries truly are. As a result, the dude simply leaves his bodyguard under Mu's watch while heading out to exact vengeance himself. Thing is, Su is sure that the mastermind behind the assassination will now try to clean up the mess and get rid of Li's body before the competition ends. His guess is proven correct after he successfully ambushes a girl named Mo trying to dispose of Li's body. The rabbit in question is no weakling either, since she possesses SR-level ability of changing her weapon into any form she desires. Su confronts her head-on while wielding swords morphed using the lightning power he stole from Li. Without suspense, the weapons master loses to Su after having only exchanged a couple of blows. The wretched pervert then threatens to steal her innocence unless she reveals her master's true identity. Left with no choice, Mo admits how the Institute of Science's head Dean Liu is the one behind the assassination attempt. As it happens, the mysterious meteorite of Skyfall is what granted humans such diverse abilities. It's also because of the same meteor that bloodthirsty predators exist and roam wild on this planet. Anyways, Dean Liu discovers how the meteorite was originally composed of two cores. The light core, which is still present, has the ability of gift and can therefore bestow magical powers onto human beings. On the flip side, Long Ming's Endlessness of Dim was derived from the dark core, which represents the power of plunder. Moreover, that same core has now been inherited by Su since he's the new user of Endless of Dim. In short, the only reason Dean Liu Zhangyu is behind Su's life is because of the dark core that resides within his body. After all, only once the meteorite's two cores have been united will Dean Liu be able to create an army of perfect human-predator hybrids for himself. Anyways, the conversation is interrupted midway after a demon-level predator comes looking for trouble. Coincidentally, it's the same dude who gave Moose so much trouble early on. Funny thing is, Su blocks the enemy's fist as if it's nothing, while also stealing away all of his energy. Such a domineering attitude makes Mo become smitten over her protagonist. What's more, she's already betrayed her former master in order to safeguard her innocence. Hence, why not find herself an even stronger master to take refuge under, especially when he's kinda hot and youthful when compared to the blind Dean from before. Su simply allows the girl to follow him, and the two soon exit through the portal since the competition's already over. Some distance away though, Ma isn't so lucky as he gets attacked by one of the legendary god-level predators right before leaving for the Star Palace. Turns out the enemy, whose name is Bus, has swallowed more than 100 demon-level predators in order to evolve to his current state. Despite being a prodigy possessing the SSR-level ability Dragon Flame, poor Ma still ends up getting bested by the opponent in no time at all. Bus then proceeds to take control over Ma's body, and next heads inside the portal, hoping to infiltrate the Star Palace while disguised as one of the 8 surviving competitors. Guess what? The dude's plan is to secretly swallow the meteor's light core in order to help him break through and ascend to an even higher level. In the meantime, Star Palace's current manager named Earl Dracula, who is also an S-ranked level 3 guard, now announces that round 2 of the competition will take place a month later. This gives Su plenty of time to look for a doctor and help Pinger to get proper treatment. Unfortunately, no ordinary doctors, including his bodyguard Li, are able to fully cure Pinger. Li here reveals Pinger can now only be cured at the hands of Mujia, who's the S-level ranked 2-star guard. Interestingly, Mujia possesses the most inferior normal level ability. Even so, he managed to rise to his current status and authority through sheer hard work and by cultivating his ability to maximum level. As for now, only Mu's mysterious neon key airflow can help heal Pinger. Regrettably, there's no such guarantee that the Star Palace's current strongest fighter will agree on helping out a rookie such as Su. Anyway, our protagonist isn't one to give up so easily, especially since the life of his beloved bodyguard is at stake here. Hence, the dude climbs all the way up the treacherous snowy mountain before finally reaching Mujia's secluded residence. Once there though, Su becomes flabbergasted upon learning how his fiancée Mu is indeed the daughter of Star Palace's current strongest fighter, Mujia. No wonder she is referred to as the Blessed Lady by all others. Anyway, Mujia, who's of casual and unrestrained nature, now instantly declines to heal Pinger upon Su's request. Guy has a point. After all, it's not like he and Su are relatives or anything, and hence there's no need for him to help cure anybody. Thankfully, Yuan intervenes just then and requests her father to fulfill Su's wish. After all, Pinger is supposed to be her next competitor in the second round of Star Guard competition. However, beating an injured opponent isn't something to be proud of, and hence getting Pinger healed is the best course of action for them all. Jia surely can't deny his daughter's request and thus proceeds to heal Pinger using his neon key. What's embarrassing is how Nyan Qi usage generates high temperatures, meaning that Muyan will have to help the unconscious Pinger get naked before being healed. Unfortunately, our perverted protagonist has no time to take a peek or anything, not with Muyan glaring daggers at him the whole time. Meanwhile, Pinger finally regains consciousness after having been fully healed. The girl, of course, shrieks out in embarrassment after finding herself sitting naked on a bed with plenty of spectators standing nearby. Later in privacy, Yuan questions whether it is worth traveling all the way up to such a dangerous mountain and risking being buried under a snowstorm all for the sake of a bodyguard. Xiaobai of course nods his head, explaining how Pinger has been with him through thick and thin. As such, she's more like a family member than just being a random bodyguard. Although impressed by her fiancé's kind spirit, Yuan still feels jealous at the thought of him being so considerate in the case of other females. At the same time, Jia confronts Pinger out on the balcony and points out how she's a rare dual ability holder. Simply put, besides being able to manipulate gravity, Pinger has one other ability up her sleeve as well. It's called symbiosis and allows her to establish a connection with the person she cares about most. That dearest person, of course, is Xiaobai in her case. Anyways, the effects of symbiosis are the same as immortality. That said, no matter how injured she gets, Pinger will never truly die so long as the person connected to her lives on. Not just that, but the other two are able to feel out each other's exact location as well. Pinger, of course, has no issue sharing her secret with Jia, since he's the one who saved her life just a while ago. Anyways, Jia later accompanies Xiaobai to the Institute of Science. After all, whether it be the ultra-rare ability Endlessness of Dim or the SSR-level lightning ability stolen from Li Yi, none of them originally belonged to Xiaobai. That said, the boy still has a chance to acquire a new ability, one that belongs solely to him alone. However, upon reaching the Institute, Dean Liu shows up to greet them both. Apparently, the old fox isn't willing to let Xiaobai acquire any further abilities, and instead intends to delay by presenting lame excuses. Thankfully, Jia is there as well. Just one glare from S-Level's ranked 2-star guard, and Dean Liu, who himself is at rank 9 of S-Level, now starts to gulp in fear. That said, the Dean takes them both to witness the meteor despite being so unwilling. Once illuminated by the core light there, Xiaobai gains an unfathomable ability. Even so, the cunning dude lies about not feeling any difference since Dean Liu is present as well. Jia plays along, and the two soon attempt to leave after criticizing the Dean for presenting a fake meteor. This infuriates the blind old man, who pulls out his sword, clearly intending to launch a sneak attack at them both. However, Jia slightly turns his head back just then and gives Dean Liu the death stare. This finally reminds the old fella just who the hell he's dealing with here. Hence, he instantly gives up any hope of annihilating Xiaobai this time around and obtaining his dark core. Once outside though, Jia nudges Xiaobai to reveal his newly acquired ability now that there's no prying eyes nearby. Xiaobai does as told, and soon Jia learns that it's an SSR level ability known as Demon God Asura. Simply put, Xiaobai now has the ability to summon and manipulate terrifying evil spirits whenever and wherever he wants to. Jia, however, warns him not to overindulge in his ability. After all, the Asura spirits are nasty and evil. Hence, utilizing them too often might result in Xiaobai losing his sanity and becoming a murderous madman. Xiaobai promises to do as told, and both go their separate ways soon after. Days pass by in a hurry, just like that, and soon it's time for the tournament's final round to begin. In his first battle, Xiaobai is to compete with another elite warrior named Hero Kolak. The opponent here is pretty confident for two separate reasons. First of all, he himself is quite an experienced lighter. On the contrary, Xiaobai is a mere rookie who has just got his hands on the Endlessness of Dim about 2 months ago. Furthermore, Kolak himself happens to possess an ultra-fast speed ability. Seeing that Xiaobai can only steal his opponent's abilities either by touching them or having them killed beforehand, he surely is a bit handicapped when dealing with Kolak. After all, to plunder an opponent's energy, you need to be quick enough to touch him first. Unfortunately, things don't go as planned, and the previously confident Kolak soon stops dead in his tracks after being stared at by Xiaobai's tons of demonic eyes. Even so, Kolak soon regains his calm and prepares to launch his ultimate strike anytime now. After all, his painstakingly built reputation is at stake here. What's funny is how Xiaobai casually slaps Kolak out of the ring soon after, almost as if he's swatting away an annoying mosquito or something. Anyways, up next is Pinger versus Yuan. Both girls are pumped to win this battle in order to prove their mettle in front of Xiaobai once and for all. Hence, soon after the battle commences, Pinger uses her gravitational energy to lift the entire freaking arena up in the air. Next, she deploys 100 times the normal gravity in the area in order to limit Yuan's movements. In such a situation, the most logical course of action for Yuan would be to forfeit the match and give up ASAP. After all, she's currently at risk of getting crushed by such a massive rock that's hanging in the air at present, and also is unable to dodge thanks to the terrifying gravity. However, Yuan isn't willing to go down easy and uses one of her tricks to connect her senses with her pet Rhino Man. This allows her to share all traits and abilities of her pet predator, resulting in her being able to resist and survive the blow. As for Pinger, the miserable-looking girl had been planning to end this battle in one go. As such, she expended all of her energy in lifting up that giant rock in the air, plus also imposing 100 times the normal gravity on Yuan. Anyways, with her energy tanks having been emptied down to the last drop, Pinger simply loses consciousness for a moment and falls down from the air. Thankfully, Xiaobai comes to the rescue in time and swoops his beloved bodyguard into his arms. Interestingly though, Yuan admits her defeat just then despite her still being able to fight. Guess what? Pinger had lifted the extra gravity a moment before the stone hit her opponent. It was only then that Yuan became able to summon the Rhino Man's abilities in order to resist the heavy blow. Hence, in case we're being fair, the final victory belongs to Pinger. Hearing the announcement, a smile appears on Pinger's beautiful face. Thankfully, she didn't end up disappointing her beloved master after all, and therefore hugs him tightly in public. Meanwhile, the sight forces red smoke out of Yuan's ears. After all, her fiancé is the one currently being hugged by another woman, and in such an affectionate manner too. Anyways, Yuan later admits how Xiaobai's strength has far surpassed hers. Not only that, but she also got eliminated from the competition ahead of schedule. The prideful girl thus surrenders and recognizes Xiaobai's status as heir to the throne as well as her future husband. Just then, the cheerful moment is interrupted by the wretched Dean. The blind old man is still possessed with slicing up Xiaobai in order to obtain the Dark Core. Regrettably, such an evil wish is unlikely to occur very soon. Qin, Shu, as well as Yan come over to help reinforce their master. What astonishes the Dean most is how Qin is able to block his sword with ease. It's quite understandable since this girl who usually prefers to stay low-key and isn't even a Star Guard shouldn't possibly be able to match him, an S-level 9th ranked Star Guard. Alas, none can deny the sad reality. Anyways, the Dean remains unfazed despite being outnumbered. That is, until Jia quietly sneaks behind his back and even places his palm on Dean Liu's shoulder. The contact forces beads of sweat to start rolling down the Dean's forehead. Here, without even exchanging a single blow, the blind old fox realizes how nothing but death will be the outcome shall he confront Jia head-on. Long story short, Dean Liu once again becomes a harmless little sheep under Jia's influence and stops bothering Xiaobai any further. Anyways, up next is Bus's turn to fight, who's currently disguised as Ma Fugui, of course. Meanwhile, his competitor is somebody who's able to grow his hair out super fast and use it as a throwable weapon. As expected though, just one blow from Bus and the hairy dude surrenders the match with tears and snot running down his face. On the flip side, Xiaobai was supposed to confront his own bodyguard Pinger in the semifinals. The girl, however, forfeits the match since her main agenda has never been to become a Star Guard herself. Also, with her surrendering in advance, Xiaobai won't even waste a bit of his energy and can simply concentrate on the upcoming final round instead. Some distance away, Long Weiyang's mother, Long Yan, is anxiously overthinking about how to mend her relationship with her son. The two obviously have some issues together since Long Ming is rumored to have previously abandoned both her husband as well as her own son for the sake of wealth and prosperity. Back in the present, some playboy young master appears all of a sudden and starts hitting on Yan. From the looks of it, Yan serves as a president in one of his companies, which is the reason he's able to act in such a cocky manner, of course. Anyways, Wei Yang coincidentally witnesses his mom being harassed like that. The fact that some snobbish young master just smacked his mom on her butt and even wishes to spend the night with her doesn't sit well with him, of course. As such, he sends the trashy dude flying out of the hallway with a single blow. Fast forward a couple of hours and it's finally Wei Yang. Soon the battle starts. Bus launches a supreme hellfire attack towards Wei Yang, hoping to reduce his opponent to ashes within an instant. Wei Yang, of course, isn't one to go down easily. Instead, the clean freak dude simply places a dummy to full Fugui, while he himself moves behind his opponent to launch a surprise sneak attack. The two continue like this for a while until Bus finally becomes fed up and surrenders the match. After all, finishing first in the tournament or becoming a star guard has never been his goal to begin with. Instead, the only reason he went through the trouble of possessing Fugui's body was so that he could sneak around unnoticed and finally steal the light core. Meanwhile, the opponent raising his hand out of the blue and giving up all of a sudden confuses Wei Yang to no end, especially considering how Fugui is known to be a combat fanatic who wouldn't give up no matter what. Anyways, Wei Yang soon shrugs off his suspicion and simply starts anticipating his next battle against Xiaobai. On the flip side, there is this one person who sees through Fugui's disguise and tracks him down in privacy. Guess who? Well, it's Ma Fei, the rank 9 S-level guard at Star Palace. It was to be expected since Fugui happens to be Fei's disciple. Hence, Bus acting weird lately, and even giving up like a chicken early on was all it took for Fei to pinpoint the issue. Unfortunately, Fugui's master too is the same as the disciple himself, all brawn and no brains. Instead of publicly accusing Bus of being an imposter, the idiotic fella ended up following Bus to a secluded place far away from where the tournament was being held. As such, despite being formidable himself and even landing a couple of good punches, Fei is soon overpowered by the opponent and ends up getting teleported outside Star Palace and within a dense forest referred to as the Guarded Grave. Basically, it's a place where the souls of thousands of humans previously eaten by Bus reside. Said souls will now continue to torture Fei until he finally loses all hope and dies a miserable death. In the interim, the final round between Xiaobai and Wei Yang finally begins. What's astonishing is how Xiaobai has somehow integrated his Asura demon god's aura together with his lightning ability. This has resulted in his lightning's destructive power being updated by a notch, while also turning into a pitch black color. Xiaobai doesn't bother being polite any further and simply goes berserk all of a sudden. Meanwhile, poor Wei Yang's cheek gets grazed despite him summoning an ice shield to block the attack. That's not the end of it. Turns out, just one scratch is all Xiaobai needed to let his evil thoughts seep into Wei Yang's blood. This forces his competitor to enter a state of absolute shock and temporarily lose all 5 of his senses. Even so, the battle's not over yet. Despite being blinded and unable to hear a thing, Wei Yang spreads ice all over the arena. Said ice serves as a 6th sense, allowing him to correctly pinpoint Xiaobai's location. The icy dude next summons a gigantic sword as a last-ditch effort to help him secure victory. Regrettably, his wish isn't fulfilled as Xiaobai too reacts strongly by throwing a massive lightning ball at the incoming sword. The end result is both attacks canceling each other and being nullified out of existence. As for the two competitors, both seem at the end of their rope and apparently can't continue any further. That's not true though, since Xiaobai's Endlessness of Dim starts to automatically absorb the surrounding mana. This means that as the match keeps on progressing, our protagonist will continue to replenish his energy. Same can't be said for Wei Yang though, who grows weaker by the second. Therefore, the result of this battle as well as the tournament's final victor are both crystal clear at this point. At such a perfect moment, all fun is spoiled once Dean Liu's research institute is blown up some distance away. Guess what? Bus has been going on a rampage within the said laboratory for the past few minutes, and has by now succeeded in acquiring the light core. So long as the cunning fellow swallows this core, he will be able to transcend the god level and become a higher ranked existence. By then, it won't matter even if Dracula himself shows up to stop him along with the rest of Star Palace's S-ranked guards, and the monstrous predator will simply be able to sweep away the entirety of Star Palace guards all by himself. What's funny is how Bus's daydreams are soon ruined by none other than Xiaobai's scientist bodyguard named Li Zhen. Turns out she hadn't been able to attend the tournament thanks to running a shift here. Now, the scientist girl with a tough backbone finally decides to make a stand after witnessing Bus running wild inside the lab, plus also imagining that dire consequences will occur should he digest the light core. With that line of thought, Zhen simply teleports the light core away to some hidden location thanks to her teleportation ability. This greatly upsets Bus, of course, who just can't bear the thought of witnessing all of his efforts go to waste. The deadly predator thus stabs Fugui's body in the stomach before taking Zhen hostage and forcefully taking over her body instead. Dracula, Ken, and the rest arrive only moments later. Unfortunately, it's already too late since Bus is long gone by then. What's funny is how Dean Liu is driven crazy at the sight of his precious light core being missing. Thankfully, Dracula's present nearby, or else the blind old fool might have gone on a rampage there and then. Up next, Dracula carries the unconscious Fugui all the way to Jia's mansion for treatment. Upon regaining consciousness, the boy explains how Bus happens to be a god-level predator lusting after the meteor's light core. Hearing that, Dracula repatches Paladin Lilith, who's the S-ranked number 6 guard as well as S-ranked number 7 Feng Men to go rescue Zhen and annihilate Bus. Xiaobai shows up just then, volunteering to participate in the mission as well. After all, it's his bodyguard's life at stake here. Although hesitant, Dracula finally agrees once Xia vouches for Xiaobai as well. The carefree guy simply declares how Xiaobai has already been promoted to a star guard, and a little adventure should therefore not be an issue whatsoever. In such a way, Xiaobai heads out to rescue Zhen together with Lilith, Ken, and Feng Men. On the flip side, Bus meets up with his female companion Yin Yu, as well as pet monkey Alwei at the forest. Both these newcomers also happen to be god-level predators just like him, and are his partners in crime, no doubt. Anyways, Bus now starts leading Xiaobai's party on a cat-and-mouse chase. Meanwhile, Yu stays behind to help Bus delay their pursuers, granting him precious time to search through Zhen's memories and find clues regarding the stone. Upon confronting Yu, Xiaobai suggests for the others not to waste too much time on her, since it's just a delay tactic. In the end, Ken stays behind to deal with the lustful predator while the rest of them slip away soon after. Yu, of course, is infuriated at the thought of multiple enemies escaping from right under her nose. The female predator thus decides to unleash her anger at Ken by releasing a lustful cry. At first, Ken assumes that the enemy is merely extremely horny as a person, which is also true, of course. However, the cry from earlier was intended to fulfill a different purpose, as very soon, Ken's own body starts to heat up and goes limp all of a sudden. Obviously, Yu's erotic voice somehow awakened Ken's sexual desire, rendering her unable to fight any further. What's more, this perverted attack is most effective against virgins such as Ken. Yu therefore captures the sword-bearing girl without any difficulty and binds her in place using her vine-like hair. Some distance away, Xiaobai and the rest end up encountering two of the monkey Alwei clones. This time around, it's Feng Men's turn to stay behind and engage with the enemy while the rest of them slip away unharmed. Here it's revealed how Feng Men's ability is the 7 deadly sins, meaning that he can switch between 7 different personality traits depending on the mood such as anger, lust, greed, etc. At present, the dude adopts the sin of anger and thus starts unleashing his wrath on the poor monkey. Far ahead, Bus continues to run while rummaging through Li Zhen's memories to look for clues regarding the light core. Soon the dude becomes suspicious about why Ken keeps popping up in Zhen's memories non-stop and therefore decides to investigate. Guess what? It's because Zhen has previously teleported the light core straight inside of her friend Ken's body in a hurry. Meanwhile, Yu's blow penetrates through Ken's chest at a great distance away. Apparently, it's the end of the road for our introverted swords girl. However, the light core residing within her chest glows up just then and illuminates her entire body. Once the light fades away, we learn how Ken has been fully healed and is once again back in top form thanks to the stone. Needless to say, it's Yu's turn to suffer from defeat as her lust attack won't work on Ken twice in a row. Here we start seeing flashbacks from Yu's memory. Turns out she was neither a predator nor a lustful girl at the beginning. Sadly enough, her adoptive former father out to be an abusive beast who started to sexually harass her once she turned 18. The depressed Yu back then had been about to commit suicide but was prevented from doing so by Bus. Back then, the dude had started ranting about how only absolute power can help resolve all issues, not forfeiting one's own life. Up next, Bus had bitten Yu on the neck, transforming her into a god-level predator just like him, and later proclaimed her as his woman. At the very least, throwing aside her humanity had helped Yu exact revenge on the scumbag father who ruined her life previously. Back in the present, Yu becomes influenced by the light core and thus loses track of all of her memories. Not only that, but her nature and thoughts are also purified by the stone, meaning that she won't go around mercilessly exterminating humans for no reason at all anymore. On the flip side, Awei questions why Bus wishes to consume the light core so badly. Here it's revealed how Bus used to consider himself as invincible back in the day. Regrettably, the poor fellow was beaten black and blue by none other than Xiaobai's predecessor, Long Ming. Back then, Long Ming was still a teenager, but even so, he managed to overpower Bus fair and square. Ever since then, Bus has been hoping to steal the light core for numerous benefits. For one, doing so will help him break through the god level and end up becoming a super god predator. Furthermore, possessing the light core will also make him immune to the dark core's plundering ability. Simply put, Xiaobai's energy swallowing ability will no longer be effective against Bus, as long as he's able to digest the light core. Their conversation is soon interrupted once Lilith finally succeeds in catching up with them both. The wretched predator is confident that neither Lilith nor anybody else will dare hurt him so long as he continues to possess Zhen's body. However, Xiaobai arrives as well just then and launches a mighty large-scale attack just then. Bus isn't too impressed though, since the attack's energy isn't concentrated and therefore can't even penetrate his protective barrier. However, he realizes that the real attack is yet to come, in the form of a sneak attack by Lilith, not Xiaobai. What's funny is how Xiaobai locks Bus in a tight grip and starts to suck away his energy soon after the latter blocks Lilith's blows. In order to prevent any more of his energy from being stolen, Bus has no choice but to evacuate Zhen's body. This, of course, had been the agenda behind Xiaobai's sneak attack all along. Anyways, Bus isn't too concerned about having lost half of his energy, not when the dark core has been served to him on a golden platter. Not only that, soon he will also be able to snatch away the light core from within Ken's body, and thus end up becoming a truly perfect being. The only thing left for him to do is to absorb all his slave souls residing within the forest, beat Xiaobai and the rest into a pulp, and finally steal and eat those stones. However, soon after, he summons and absorbs all his accumulated souls. A funny thing happens. Turns out, Bus isn't able to display his peak performance and instead is stuck at only 70% of his peak power. Soon we learn the reason why after Faye pops out of the shadows and joins everybody else. Turns out he followed the souls all the way there and thus finally managed to escape the confusing forest. Not only that, but he had also previously destroyed a ton of Bus's slave souls with his fist while roaming the forest. That of course is the reason why Bus is unable to reach his top form. Anyways, Lilith and Xiaobai both point out how Bus is the one who manipulated Faye's disciple like a puppet previously and even put a hole in his gut before leaving. Both their testimonies achieve the desired effect, as Faye soon loses his cool and starts bombarding Bus with his mighty dragon-like fist. As it happens, Bus's soul form can help him survive 3 fatal attacks. Unfortunately, one of those 3 layers is broken after Faye goes crazy on Bus. Even so, the enemy continues to grow stronger as time passes by and eventually overpowers both Lilith and Faye. Xiaobai finally solves the puzzle by declaring how the enemy is still in the process of digesting the energy obtained from all those souls. That said, the longer this fight stretches, the more overbearing and invincible the enemy will become. Xiaobai thus stops holding back and plays his trump card, the Asura Demon God's ability to lock down Bus and make him tremble in fear. Interestingly, both of these fellows happen to be quite familiar with evil spirits and can control them with ease. Yet it seems that the evil spirits from Xiaobai's Ashura demon god are of a higher level and thus able to overpower Bus with ease. Long story short, Xiaobai by himself destroys the remaining 2 soul layers, making Bus quite vulnerable. Of course, neither Lilith nor Faye are willing to let such a heavenly opportunity to get rid of their opponent once and for all slip by. The two therefore attack the poor fellow with everything they have, resulting in Bus losing quite a lot of meat as well as a couple of limbs. Regrettably, it's not the end yet, as pretty soon Bus sneakily attempts to take over Xiaobai's body and even succeeds in doing so. This means that so long as he's able to erase Xiaobai's spirit, Bus will then become the new owner of this body, as well as all of Xiaobai's terrific abilities. What's funny though is how the dude is soon knocked out cold after a painful head smack delivered by none other than Faye. Min soon arrives then, and together they all wait for the spiritual battle to finish and see whether Xiaobai still lives on, or will Bus be able to completely take over his body. On the flip side, Xiaobai is having an intense battle against Bus's spirit. Unfortunately, there's the middle plane, and so utilizing both the Endlessness of Dim as well as the Asura demon god's power is out of the question, no doubt. Hence, Xiaobai remains at a severe disadvantage from the beginning. After all, the opponent is someone who has consumed innumerable souls previously, and thereby possesses a strong spiritual presence. Just then, Xiaobai is reminded of his past life, as well as how his desired circumstances from back then forced him to grow far tougher on a mental basis. Remembering all that, the dude's normal physique transforms into a towering presence and soon gains the up. From there, it's only a matter of time before Bus is finally reduced to ashes for good and has all of his vitality stolen by Xiaobai. In the meantime, Dean Liu too arrives at the place and attempts to murder Xiaobai while the latter is still unconscious. After all, the hateful old man couldn't care less about whether it's Bus, the one who wakes up, or the boy himself. After all, both are his enemies. One is the wretched person who destroyed his lab, while the other won't let him obtain the Dark Core no matter what, and has even insulted him on many different occasions. Thankfully, Lilith's still standing guard there and thus receives Dean Liu's hit with her bare hand. Realizing that he won't be able to gain much of an advantage against the paladin girl standing up front, the Dean simply shifts his approach. According to him, chances of Xiaobai surviving against Bus are next to zero. Hence, it's far better to exterminate them both now, or else Bus may end up obtaining the Endlessness of Dim for himself, and later create trouble for the Star Palace. Even so, Lilith isn't the least bit convinced and simply warns the Dean not to play any dirty tricks or she won't go easy on him. The quarrel finally comes to an end after Xiaobai wakes up and says hello. The boy then ensnares Lilith in his charm by tearing his shirt into shreds and using one of those pieces to tie up her injured hand. Afterward, Xiaobai challenges Dean Liu to a decisive battle to help them both resolve their grievances once and for all. After having absorbed all of Bus's vitality, the guy's momentum is truly gone up a notch. The Dean too is itching to mince the annoying teenager into meat powder, and therefore agrees to participate in the duel. From the looks of it, the blind old fellow is still fairly confident in his victory. In the meantime, all of Xiaobai's other bodyguards, his fiancée Yuan, Yu, and Fu Gui arrive as well to watch the match and serve as witnesses. At last, the match finally begins. What's astonishing is how the Dean utilizes his unique ability to return to his past 27-year-old self. Back then was when the Dean used to be at his peak moment, and was therefore an excellent swordsman. Anyways, the old fox, who's technically not so old anymore, makes the first move by attempting to slice Xiaobai in half. However, Xiaobai isn't of course an unhatched chicken anymore, especially after having siphoned all of Bus's energy. Simply put, the boy easily gains the upper hand in the fight and successfully pushes the Dean back into the corner. On the sidelines, Lilith is quite impressed by Xiaobai's skillfulness as well as his reliability. Anyways, both contestants soon tighten the grip on their swords and prepare for a final blow. The result is Xiaobai receiving only a surface scratch on his chest. Meanwhile, the overpowered dude successfully chops away one of Dean Liu's arms. Even so, Xiaobai's intuition tells him how the battle is far from over. His guess is proven correct after the Dean transforms into a gigantic predator. Yep, the stubborn old man had even turned himself into an experimental subject, and therefore possesses the strength of a peak stage god-level predator now. Neither Xiaobai nor everybody else is able to match up against the opponent anymore. Though from the looks of it, the females in particular seem as if they're about to engage in a forbidden activity instead of being thrown around like rag dolls. I mean, look at the poses in which they're lying on the ground. Anyways, Jia thankfully comes to the rescue just then and prevents his daughter from being eliminated by a stray laser beam. Next, the guy rips off a tree with his bare hands and pierces the giant eye in Dean Liu's stomach with it. Finally, Jia is of the mind to spare Dean Liu since they're colleagues of sorts after all. The Dean, however, doesn't appreciate the opponent's kindness and instead launches a sneak attack from behind Jia's back. This infuriates Jia, who then utilizes the straw in his mouth to blast away Dean Liu's head to smithereens. This entire time, the audience continues to feel unbelievable while staring at S-Rank's number 2 Guardian's miraculous feats. Anyway, Jia hurriedly leaves once the battle's over. Guess what? There's a milk tea discount happening today, and this sugar-addicted guy surely can't afford to miss it. On the flip side, Xiaobai refuses to absorb even a bit of Dean Liu's scattered energy. After all, Jia is the one who defeated the opponent here. Therefore, him snatching away the spoils without any effort won't sit well with Xiaobai's self-esteem. A month down the road, our insanely lucky protagonist wakes up with Yu lying on top of him. The lustful girl is surely in the mood to break some taboos and do some naughty stuff together with Xiaobai. Thankfully, Ken barges into the room just then and prevents Yu from stealing away her master's virginity. Otherwise, Xiaobai would surely have experienced one hell of a pain in his elephant thanks to the curse put on him by the wretched Long Ming. Anyways, the fellow soon prepares to head for Dracula's mansion. Turns out he's become eligible to be an S-ranked guard after the Dean Liu incident from a while back. Once outside the mansion though, Xiaobai runs into Monk Kunai, who's actually number 4 on the list of S-ranked guardians. From the looks of it, the old monk has a history with his bodyguard Ken. That's none of Xiaobai's business though. Just then, a female arrives as well and compliments Xiaobai on his recent progress. Guess what? She's the number 5 S-ranked guardian named Bai Yumo. This one's a bit of a reckless character and therefore wishes to test Xiaobai's strength upon their first ever meeting. Interestingly, Lilith too arrives there and instantly starts to attack Bai Yumo. After all, the paladin girl indeed has a crush on Xiaobai and is therefore unwilling to let him be bullied by others. What's more, both girls also seem to possess prior hatred for one another. Here, Kunai explains that there's other small countries of human survivors out of these as well. Since each of those countries relies on Star Palace to survive in this post-apocalyptic world, they're all obligated to send over their best warrior to serve as a guardian at Star Palace. That said, Lilith belongs to the Western Kingdom of Knights and used to be the strongest expert there. Meanwhile, Bai Yumo is the leader of the Eastern Sword Fairy Kingdom. What's more, both of these countries are hostile against one another, which is the primary reason why both these females don't see eye to eye with one another. Anyways, Xiaobai himself intervenes and binds both girls using his Asura arms. Otherwise, the two girls surely won't stop fighting until they've plucked out each other's hair. Dracula and the other S-ranked guardians arrive as well just then. The vampire dude announces Xiaobai's promotion to number 10th S-ranked guardian. Interestingly, Bai Yumo objects to this decision, not because she doesn't see Xiaobai as capable enough. Rather, she's simply jealous of Lilith being so close to the talented new rookie, and therefore wishes to become intimate with Xiaobai herself as well. That said, Bai Yumo proposes to give her consent for Xiaobai's promotion only in case he accompanies her back to Fairy Kingdom and breaks some sort of sword formation. Meanwhile, Lilith's face loses all color since she has a pretty good guess regarding what Bai Yumo's really up to. Regrettably, her hope is shattered once Dracula agrees to Bai Yumo's request and orders Xiaobai to accompany her back to her kingdom ASAP. Once on their way though, the sassy girl shows her true colors and starts seducing Xiaobai while they both ride on her flying sword. Having been afflicted with the no boner curse, like such a form of harassment obviously is unbearable for the poor fellow. Luckily, both of them soon arrive at the Fairy Kingdom. As the name suggests, it's a mysterious kingdom inhabited solely by females only. As such, men are definitely a rare sight here. Anyways, the cunning and treacherous Bai Yumo soon starts spinning lies in front of her subordinates about how Xiaobai is a perverted villain who continuously attempted to steal her announcement while on the way there. As such, she orders him to be captured and taken away to her private residence for the sake of torture. On the other hand, Xiaobai doesn't resist despite clearly possessing the ability to break free from his captivity and regain control. Soon he learns Bai Yumo's true motive behind having him defamed and captured like that. Turns out the ruse earlier was meant to prevent her subordinates from hitting on Xiaobai and snatching him away from her. In short, while all her other petty subordinates are kept in the dark regarding Xiaobai's true heroic identity, Bai Yumo herself appears stark naked in front of him and even offers to spend the night together with our insanely lucky protagonist. Unfortunately, her hope of seducing an alpha male is splintered into many pieces soon after. Turns out there's a ton of predators attacking her kingdom this very instant. As a result, both of them instantly rush to reinforce Bai Yumo's subordinates and help them defeat the enemy. Soon, Xiaobai comes face to face with a giant boar-shaped demon-level predator. The big fellow is extremely lecherous and wishes to monopolize all pretty women of the fairy kingdom for himself. Our protagonist, of course, teaches him a good lesson soon after. Here, Xiaobai reveals his true identity as the newest S-rank Star Guard. Upon hearing that, the eyes of the girl whom he just saved start twinkling. After all, she not only met the youngest S-rank Star Guard just now, but was also personally saved by him. Next up comes a horde of skeleton monsters, but Xiaobai sweeps them all away effortlessly, and in no time at all. Outside the city, a woman named Zhang Tianyu stands together with a mysterious hooded figure. From the looks of it, the two are here to confiscate the Endlessness of Dim from Xiaobai's custody. It's a pity that Bai Yumo's back in time, and therefore is not the optimal time period for them both to reveal their identities and mount an all-out attack. On the flip side, the infuriated Bai Yumo massacres all incoming predators at her kingdom's doorstep. Xiaobai too follows her all the way there just then. Seeing how devastated Bai Yumo looks at the sight of tons of her subordinates' bodies, the dude simply proposes a plan to root out the enemy's nest. That's right, the cunning fellow had previously allowed one fish to escape the net. Then upon tracking the guy's movements, they can surely discover and eradicate the nest of predators responsible for the earlier chaos and destruction. Bai Yumo, of course, gives her consent, and so the two soon start implementing Xiaobai's plan step by step. In the meantime, the person who previously gathered such a massive army of predators and sent them all to raid the fairy kingdom is finally revealed. Turns out Jin Peng here is seething with the desire for revenge as well. After all, having her army of tens of thousands of predators destroyed overnight was surely an aggravating experience. Anyways, her desire to seek vengeance is soon fulfilled once both Xiaobai as well as Bai Yumo show up at her doorstep on their own initiative. Regrettably, Bai Yumo's far more tough than her estimate, and therefore running away ASAP is the only option left for Jin Peng. What's funny is how Xiaobai tightly grabs onto the winged girl the moment before she takes flight. Once in the sky though, the wretched fellow sucks away all of her energy, forcing Jin Peng to come crashing down into the forest. Later on, the shameless dude ties her up next to a tree in a rather perverted manner. From the looks of it, the dude surely used to indulge in the BDSM category back during his first lifetime. Upon waking up, poor Jin Peng has no choice but to submit to Xiaobai's interrogation and answer all of his questions truthfully. After all, the consequences of not obeying the perverted fellow in front aren't something that she can afford. Turns out, the same mysterious black-robed man who was eyeing Xiaobai from a distance during the battle not long ago had previously come to Jin Peng and offered her a magic talisman as a gift. Said talisman is what allowed her to gather such a massive army and even make sure they all obey her orders effectively. Xiaobai here analyzes the data and concludes that poor Jin Peng was merely meant to act as a pawn in the masked villain's game. Even so, she did end up hurting Bai Yumo's country badly, and will therefore remain a prisoner forever. Finally, with the war as well as revenge both sorted, Bai Yumo invites Xiaobai to continue from where they left off earlier that night. At the end of the day, no matter how strong-willed and self-disciplined, Xiaobai too is a man. Hence, the dude surely isn't able to resist Bai Yumo's charm, especially when she's the one making the first move. Unfortunately, Ming's wretched curse kicks in just then, causing Xiaobai immense pain in his crotch area. Bai Yumo finally learns the reason why he's been avoiding her all this time. Turns out, it's not because of her own inadequacy, but rather that he's simply incapable of committing the forbidden deed along with her. Interestingly though, the girl knows how to break the seal that limits Xiaobai's masculinity. As it happens, Bai Yumo's master was the one who invented this curse. Back in the day, her master had been a heavenly beauty. and was also very talented. Unfortunately, she became ensnared by the charm of Dean Liu, who used to be quite young and handsome back then. As expected, the selfish old man had betrayed his lover back then. Thankfully, he received the penalty for doing so by having his eyes gouged out, plus also being forever sealed with the same curse mark that Ming inflicted on Xiaobai. Long story short, Yumo's master taught her how to inflict as well as break the curse before her eventual death. That knowledge comes in handy now as Yumo effortlessly manages to free Xiaobai from Ming's despicable curse. Once free though, all that accumulated testosterone finally gets the better of our protagonist, and so he jumps on top of Bai Yumo like some ravenous and bloodthirsty tiger and even pins her down to the ground. Yumo, of course, isn't the least bit concerned and even starts looking forward to what comes next. Fast forward a few hours and Yumo wakes up comfortably, thanks to the dazzling sunlight. Xiaobai too awakens from his sleep a while later. To be honest, he's no doubt one lucky dude for having graduated from his virginity status at the hands of Bai Yumo, who's not just a marvelous beauty, but also sovereign in the influential fairy kingdom. This wraps up the current arc's end, and we are left pondering several mysteries. First of all, who's the mysterious stranger that's been eyeing Xiaobai's abilities since a while ago? Moreover, how come Xiaobai's predecessor Ming ended up dead despite being in possession of the ultra-rare ability in existence? Last but not least, what's the dividing line that separates humans from predators? Also, is it truly impossible for both these species to live together and cohabitate Earth in a peaceful manner together? Anyways, we'll surely pull the curtains and reveal the answers to all these questions from above within the next recap of this webtoon. There is one catch though. Simply put, you can either be a subscriber or say goodbye to all future recaps from this manhwa.